The interview that I did with Merritt Wever, who stars in not one but two Emmy eligible series this year, which is really something. She's on Netflix's Unbelievable. And then the thing we talked about was her role on Run on HBO, which premiered, I think, early on in the pandemic and served for me at least as a really fine escape, which I think I tell her. As you're going to be able to tell, like many of the Emmy season interviews we're running, this interview is conducted in the spring after the pandemic had changed everything, but before the George Floyd protests had changed everything all over again. So that's a valuable context for the conversation. But it was really interesting. She talked about a lot of things about why she doesn't like to give interviews, which is a very meta thing to hear when you're giving an interview, and got really detailed about the way that she has worked on acting as her craft and what it's like to have grown up as a child actor, which is something I wasn't even that familiar with before I was preparing for the interview. She's more thoughtful than the average interview subject, which I really appreciated, and I thought she was great. I hope you do too.
So yeah, so you're staying in the city?
Yes, I'm in the city. Yeah.
How's it feeling at this point?
You know, you know, yeah, that's the, yeah.
Oh, it's
You
also, I
know
mean,
how it's feeling.
well, like, life has to go on in some way, and you have to, like, do press for your show while, like, it feels like the world is collapsing. There's this weird cognitive dissonance for everyone, I think.
Yeah, it's been a strange thing to navigate how to feel appropriate doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, it's a new experience and a new skill for me anyway. So yeah.
Which part?
Um, Press, I think,
Mm.
is somehow still, or maybe this amount of press, or the nature of this kind of press, what this
Yeah.
round has felt like is new. So I'm on I'm realizing I'm on a steep learning curve anyway. So yeah, but I'm sure that everyone is feeling a real strangeness, or I assume I hope everyone else is feeling a real strangeness around how to do this, how to support people who supported me,
Mhm.
while also feeling like tonally and emotionally appropriate as a person in the world right now.
Yeah. Although I don't know what kind of feedback you get on your work or on Run specifically, but I do think like the value of escapism is so big right now, and like things that people can watch in their houses. There is a kind of a value of
I
that maybe
think
wasn't
that's
even as
completely true and completely valid. And I get that. And I envy people who can escape right now. I've found
Mhm.
that I've had a hard time like watching things, and been having a hard time reading, and I've
Mhm. Oh yeah.
been having a hard time watching things. I think getting lost in narrative has been difficult for
Yeah.
me, which feels like it's a very distant cousin of something that happens to me when I go to work, which is I can't, when I'm working on a job, I seem to be unable to enter any other narrative. I can't read something. I can't really watch something. I think it's because there's always this other story engine that's running whenever I'm working, whether I
Mm.
think it is or not. And something that is, much more traumatic. I don't mean to like, I'm backtracking and comparing this to my experience of going to work, but I think something's happening right now where there's like there's another constant engine running, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't lose myself in, seem to lose myself in story the way I would like to, because I could use an escape. I think everybody could.
Did you film this and Unbelievable close together in any way?
My goodness. Yeah, I auditioned for this, and then I went to shoot Unbelievable. And that was,
Mhm.
over the course of several months. And then I went back in to read with Donal towards the end of filming Unbelievable.
Mhm.
So, and then I flew directly from Unbelievable to Toronto to shoot the pilot. So it was strange. And one of the reasons, there was a lot to be, I mean, there were many reasons to want to be a part of Run, but one of them, I think, looking back, was that I had spent months shooting Unbelievable, and that energy,
Mhm.
what that part required, was so different than this. And I think that there was a part of me that was really craving a chance to live in a different energetic space, get to play a little bit, have some room to breathe, because
Yeah.
unbelievable that that energy was so tight and so relentless and driven and focused. And this is kind of the opposite. There's a
Hmm.
lot of space to play, or perhaps I wanted that very badly and decided that I was going to give myself that room and that space to play.
Does Marriage Story offer a similar kind of? I mean, I know that I imagine that was filmed before Unbelievable, but I think about the comic tones of Marriage Story, and that movie is not like necessarily a comedy, but you get to kind of live in a more comic element of that, and that does also seem like a useful contrast from something like Unbelievable.
Yeah, but that again, you're right. That was shot way before, so I it wasn't like one thing was in response to the other, or
Yeah.
wanting to kind of claim that space in response to not having had access to it for months.
Yeah. To go back to you reading with Donal at the very beginning of this, I was reading something written about it that like it had made people wonder if you guys had a real life relationship because you guys have such a connection that's on screen. And I'm curious if something if what we as reviewers would call chemistry, if that means anything to you as an actor, or if it is more specific or like more ineffable. Like, when someone says you have chemistry with one of your co-stars, does that register for you, or does it feel like a different description?
Well, I don't know. I mean, one thing I'm clocking is that people only say that you have chemistry with someone when they're talking about a relationship of this nature. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Nobody sees. I mean, and again, perhaps I'm wrong. I'm often wrong, but like when I think about it, I don't think of like believably acted mother-daughter relationships or
Mm-hmm.
sibling relationships or teacher-student relationships that are referred to as having chemistry. I think that's a word that we use in reference to or put on relationships of this nature,
Yeah.
but I don't know that the work as an actor is any different just because this is the nature of their relationship than it would be if I was, playing something else,
Yeah.
but I understand the kind of interest or fascination with it because I think in real life we don't have control over whether we have, to use your word, chemistry with someone.
Mm-hmm.
We all know what it's like to want that thing to be there and for it not to be there. But Vicky gave us so much to play, and I think that we are. I mean, she gave us so much to play. It was like looking down and having this huge garden and just, pick your, I don't know. That felt useless. I'm going to stop right there with that. But like,
No,
but
I know what you mean.
I also think that we're playing two characters who are paying excruciatingly close attention to each other. Or I
Mm-hmm.
can only speak for myself as an actor, but so much of Ruby in so many ways is going to depend second to second on what Billy is doing, how
Yeah.
he is speaking to her, how he is behaving. And so I had to balance, keeping myself excruciatingly open to his character, but also somehow staying tethered to myself as an actor. But listen,
Yeah.
I'm glad if people believe this relationship. I mean, that's what actors want,
Well, and I think
so that's a good thing.
everyone has seen some kind of rom-com or romance where you have two characters who are gazing at each other and you're supposed to feel something and you don't. And I think when you feel it as a viewer, you notice it immediately. And that can be the actors and can be great writing. Like there's a combination of things that go into it. But I think it snaps you into attention the way that you wouldn't if it wasn't working as well on screen.
Well, I'm so glad then. No, really. We both worked very hard and tried very hard. So
What is